everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics. In this video, we're taking a look at the Olight Valkyrie PL-2 weapon light. The lumen war is in full swing. Light companies are attempting to produce more and more brighter lights at a faster pace. We're seeing companies roll out lights that have a higher lumen output or higher battery and lumen output more frequently than we did in the past, which is a good thing because we still haven't reached the point where I think a light's going to produce enough light to satisfy all possible needs for it. And of course, you know, there's an argument of is there such a thing as too many lumens? We're not even close to that point yet. Olight is not a new company. They've been around for quite some time. However, I've never really paid attention to them. And I'm just being honest because the experiences I've had with their lights, some I've picked up myself, a couple little handheld lights, and occasionally when I'd see someone in a class, a low light class, with one of their lights, I just wasn't really impressed with the performance or the durability. That being said, I like to keep an open mind. I like to revisit things, even if I've had a bad experience with a product in the past. If they come out with something new, everybody's capable of redeeming themselves. And my standards may be slightly different than your standards. I like things to be, you know, as hard use and mechanically ergonomic as possible. So you may not have the same requirements, and that's fine. When the first Valkyrie light came out, I wasn't really interested because the lumen count just wasn't what was already being offered on the market, so I didn't even really consider it. But when the PL-2 was announced, right around $100 in price and a max output of 1200 lumens, they definitely had my attention because as of right now, this is one of, if not the brightest weapon light, especially handgun specific light on the market. Of course, my initial concerns going in the review process were, is the Olight going to be more of what I'd seen in the past? Not as durable as its competition, not as consistent as its competition, or were the controls going to be less ergonomic than the competition? While I don't do comparison videos, I believe every product should stand on its merits. The Valkyrie PL-2 had a steep hill to climb, in my opinion, because I like what I like for a reason, and I get the consistent performance from other lights that I use. So going into it, I wanted to be as critical, but objective as possible in evaluating the PL-2. So how do you evaluate a weapon light? It's pretty easy, I think. You just use it. Try to make the use as realistic as possible. So during the review process, I fired 1,000 rounds, actually over 1,000 rounds. Not only purposely to run the light, but also, you know, switched it to a couple different handguns when I was doing my own personal low light practice or my own personal practice in general. Because even if you're not shooting low light, the light may be attached to the gun. Is recoil going to cause an issue with the light? Handgun lights are arguably have to be able to handle more shock than, say, a rifle light, because the recoil pulses and these things are, the energy is going to be distributed a little bit differently. So I would say that handgun lights have to be a little bit more robust when it comes to handling recoil, managing recoil, than a light that's, say, for a 223 or something like that. Now, getting right into it, 1200 lumens. Lumens is intensity. It does produce 1200 lumens. However, that 1200 lumens kind of has an asterisk to it, which Olight freely admits. You're only going to get 1200 lumens for about 1.5 to 2 minutes because the light is thermally regulated. Once the temperature in the light body gets to a certain point, it's going to kick itself down automatically to 600 lumens until the light cools off. Now, a minute and a half or 2 minutes of continuous use, is that possible? It's very possible. So that 1200 lumens is going to be there for a small window of time, and you're not going to get it back until the light body cools past that thermally regulated point, at which point you'll get your 1200 lumens back. So if you're using light intermittently, or you're using light sparsely, or you're not really needing the weapon light for everything that you're doing, you may have that 1200 lumens every time you activate the light, be it for 3 or 4 or 5 seconds for a string of fire, or during a building search when you're just looking in those very specific places. And for home defense, most people can probably get through the majority of their house checking for the big spots, the big people, in 1.5 minutes. That being said, if you do lose the 1200 lumens, you have half that, which is still 600. As far as intensity goes, that's a lot of light being put out of a 2-cell handgun light. Of course, for me, the elephant in the room is always candela. I like lumens, don't get me wrong. That seems to be the industry standard. How we measure and how lights are sold is that magic lumen number. But lumens is intensity. I'm more interested in candela, which is intensity at a point. Kind of a layman's definition. How much of a hot spot am I going to have? As a pistol light, it does have what I'd consider to be a traditional pistol hotspot. You're going to have a very wide hotspot, which isn't necessarily a bad thing considered the average or the expected distances that handguns are going to be used for them versus a rifle. I would expect a rifle light to have a much tighter, more focused hotspot than the pistol light. That being said, that 1200 lumens, and then when it kicks down to 600 lumens, isn't giving me the reach that I would like. I'd have to say for me that is going to be a bit of a negative because there are lights that have a somewhat lower or a considerably lower lumen output, but their candela is able to give me positive identification on targets at a greater range, comparatively speaking. So as far as candela goes, I'm not super impressed. I'm more impressed than I am with Olight products I've seen in the past, definitely. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just for my personal standard, I want to be able to have the light to reach further and give me positive identification at greater distances. Even out to like 25 meters, I was still kind of iffy on some of my shoot don't shoot practice scenarios that were set up for me. I could get PID if the lighting conditions were just right and if I was able to work the light in there just right, but it was so grainy outside of that reach that I didn't have 100% confidence in what I was being able to do until I move forward 5, 10, 15 meters. So while you do have a max 1200 lumen, min 600 lumen output, I wish the candela was a little tighter. I wish it pushed out a little further. I wish I got a little more focus and reach out of the beam. As far as controls go, they are electronic controls. It's push button controls. So you've got momentary and constant on. One thing, and it's a small thing, but one thing that does bother me about electronic switches is they can't tell what you're trying to do. You just have to perform a task for a certain amount of time to get a result. Whereas a mechanical rocker switch, it's a dumb technology, so it doesn't care what your intent is. It's going to do what it does based on your input. And specifically what I'm talking about is if I want to just do a quick flash of light, I can't. The light's going to go constant on if I just do a quick tap. In order to get a momentary only, I've got to give it just about twice that amount of time that a quick tap would take me. Is that a big deal? Not necessarily until you want to just do a quick strobe of light to just check out this one particular area of interest. I am more of a constant on than a strobing or momentary only light user, except when I'm doing a search. I don't need light for every situation. Most environments I'm going to be in are mesopic in nature, that twilighty condition. And if I am in very, very scotopic light, then I'm probably going to be using a slightly different technique or going constant on based on the environment or the context of the situation. But the fact that if I can't do a quick tap, that's just going to give me constant on. When I want constant on, that's awesome. When I don't want constant on, that's a little aggravating that this is my momentary. Not a big deal, but it's not something that I really prefer. Another feature that I really like about the Valkyrie is the attachment method. It is muzzle safe, which means you can attach and detach the light from the firearm without putting your hand in front of the muzzle. Again, not a huge issue if you're practicing, proper firearm safety, making sure the weapon's clear and unloaded, everything like that. Then you can take your light off, put your light on, change your batteries, whatever you're removing the light from. But the fact that even if someone gets a little bit more complacent than they should, they still would be hard-pressed to have a negligent situation while attaching or detaching the light. I like that they put some thought into that. Durability is always going to be the elephant in the room. I'm really surprised, I got to be honest. Based on the durability I've seen from Olight in the past, I was not expecting this light to survive the review process when it came to durability. I did repeat drop tests on concrete from shoulder height while attached to the handgun, and the light still kicking. My bezel's a little scratched up, no big deal. I wasn't able to damage the glass, I wasn't able to bend the bezel. Using it for other specific hard use tests, just like other lights, sometimes I use a pistol light as a barricade brace, depending on the situation. No issues there. I would probably have to purposely attempt to break this light in order to actually break it. Because, I mean, I did probably 7 to 10 minutes of nothing but pick it up, drop it, 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 pick it up, you get the point. And the light still functioned, the light still worked great. Opened it up, checked the battery connections, everything seemed good to go. So as far as construction goes, is in relation to durability, right now this is a really durable light, and that's really impressive to me based on the experiences I've had with their products in the past. They definitely stepped up their game when it came to purpose-built design for hard use. Of course, holsters are going to be a problem. There aren't a lot of people out there making holsters for these right now. So if it's something you're interested in, you're going to be a little hard pressed to find one. There are some people, I've read some places online where people are able to saying that it's compatible with the Surefire X300U holsters. That has not been my experience. All X300U holsters I have, this light with this configuration will not fit in them. It goes in, but it doesn't lock all the way into place because the bezel diameter is slightly different, the body diameter is slightly different. It's just different enough to where it's not going to lock in. It certainly didn't work in a duty holster, nor did it work in any of the concealment Kydex holsters I have. So you'd have to have a vendor make a specific holster for this light. Again, not a huge deal because there's so many guys out there that do Kydex. I'm sure there's somebody already offering it. Would I consider this light? For me, it's going to be a pass, and not because there's anything significantly horribly wrong with the light. Like I said, I've got more positives than negatives when it comes to this light. But I'm only getting that 1200 lumens for, you know, right about 1.5 to 2 minutes. And for me, that's just not going to be good enough. And the control feature, I prefer mechanical levers. I don't like the electronic push button controls that you get with some lights. Battery life is great. The light does tend to run pretty hot, especially when it's still running at 1200 lumens, but that's not a huge deal. It didn't damage anything or obviously start a fire. And as far as I can tell, the internals, even though, you know, I burned it through 2 sets of batteries during the review process, and as far as I can tell, nothing has diminished in any way. And the durability is on point, but if you're looking for a very, very reasonably priced weapon light, especially for a handgun that necessarily isn't going to get holstered, like say a home defense handgun or tackle box handgun or whatever your purpose is, or a handgun that you're just going to throw in a holster and it's not going to have a lot of work duties besides that, it's a really good light. As far as a self-defense light goes, especially for citizen carry, I can't see any reason why you couldn't carry this light and be perfectly competent in its ability to perform. Now, long-term performance, I'm not really sure because, like I said, I've only got just over 1,000 rounds on this light, even though I did accelerate the life cycle by dropping this thing repeatedly, trying to break it in a realistic way. I don't know what this light's performance is going to be like 6 months to a year from now. So initially, I'm going to say I'm going to give this thing 2 big thumbs up, and we'll see how it goes 6 months to a year down the road when I keep using it as often as I can. I don't foresee any potential problems other than the fact that the light does tend to run consistently hot, and I think over time that might cause some issues, but I don't want to kind of try to predict that right now. I'm going to remain as objective as possible when it comes to performance there. But like I said, all things considered, this is a great light. I'm pleasantly surprised, and I'm glad that Olight's making a product that finally I'd be like, yeah, you know, if you're looking for this or that, or if you prefer this type of operation versus that type of operation, especially for the price, the Valkyrie PL-2 is a pretty good choice. I'm Aaron Count with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.